So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Enuma Elish, the 7 tablets of creation to start off. And what you need to understand is the Enuma Elish is an ancient cuneiform group of tablets that really talk about the creation of our solar system, the very, very beginnings of the whole thing, how we even got here. These are the actual tablets. These are the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation. What you'll find is that the Bible is mostly this text right here. Dividing the waters from the Genesis is mostly here. Separating the waters from the waters, the creation of man in our image, all of that, really, and the creation of the earth, the solar system, it's all in these tablets right here. It's a real amazing story. Even the then preceding enslavement of mankind is also in these texts as well. And the reason for the enslavement is there as well. The Atrahasis is also another amazing text. This is also another account written at another time, also telling the similar story of beings coming from another place and coming here to Earth and engaging mankind. Now, what's interesting about this and what really is important about this is to understand, in this time frame when these tablets were being copied and created, people didn't have time to become, George Lucas, right? They weren't inspired by George Lucas to create these incredible sci-fi movies on tablets. These people were scribing specifically what they were told to write by their God or their Lord or their master, or they were writing what they were experiencing themselves at that time. And we know that Uranus, which is a planet that's in our solar system, was affected by a gravitational object that came through the solar system, which is why it's tilted on its side. I don't know if you knew that, but Uranus doesn't have an equatorial orbit this way. It's actually tilted and almost flipping end over end on its side. And the reason why this is important, because in the Enuma Elish and the Atrahasis, it talks about an actual planet or something large coming through our solar system, okay, in ancient times, talking about millions of years ago, and affecting the gravitational fields and also the orbits of all the planets and moons in our solar system. And so now we know this is true because science, they teach you this in astrophysics classes in college. Something huge was gravitationally captured by our solar system and came through, just like these stone tablets say. So when the stone tablets start backing up information that modern science is just now finding out, I have to think that they're probably as close to the truth as we're possibly going to get. We know that something giant came through here, and actually over several passes, which took thousands of years, it started yanking and yanking and yanking until Uranus flipped on its side. Now, a lot of people know this as the Milky Way galaxy, and you can see where the sun is actually showing you exactly where you are right here in one of these, in the suburbs of the Milky Way, right? A nice quiet area, just far away from the galactic equator for us to have a nice, quiet area of space where there's not a lot of catastrophe going on consistently. Stars are moving at a very decent speed around the galactic equator, whereas if you were closer in, your star would move much faster, which would age you much faster, right? But what's interesting is, how did we get here? Scientists know that we're not from here. Now, I'm gonna read this science article to you, just a couple of sentences for it. It says, imagine the shock of growing up in a loving family with people who call you mom and dad, and then suddenly learning that you were actually adopted. This happens in real life. How can this be? Using volumes of data from the 2-micron all-sky survey in 2-mass infrared mode, a major project to survey the sky in infrared light led the University of Massachusetts, and the astronomers are now answering this huge question that have baffled scientists for decades, proving that our own Milky Way galaxy is consuming one of its neighbors in a dramatic display of ongoing galactic cannibalism. The study, published in the Astrophysical Journal, is the first step to map the full extent of the Sagittarius galaxy and show it visually in vivid detail and how its debris wraps around and passes through our Milky Way. Sagittarius is 10,000 times smaller in mass, and so it's getting stretched out, torn apart, and gobbled up by the bigger Milky Way. So if you ever go night watching out in the night sky in a nice area with no light pollution, and you look up at the sky and you see that giant band of stars whipping across, and you go, man, it's the Milky Way. Guess what? You've been wrong the whole time. It's not the Milky Way. Now, this is all the science books have already been rewritten. They've already been rewritten. It's the Sagittarius Dwarf galaxy. Why is this important? Because right where the Sagittarius Dwarf, not the Sagittarius constellation, the Sagittarius Dwarf galaxy, right where it actually merges and meets there's a little tiny dot. I don't know if you can see it, a little tiny yellow dot where it meets and is being swallowed up by the Milky Way. That's where we are. We also now know by doing a reverse calculation of the trajectory of this Sagittarius merger that this solar system that we're in, didn't come from the Milky Way. We are actually aliens here. We don't even belong in this galaxy. So do aliens exist? They're all sitting right here. We're the aliens. So the Sagittarius Dwarf is another galaxy that's being consumed gravitationally and merging in with the Milky Way. And exactly at the point where it meets is where we are. Now, what's interesting about that, in the astrophysical books, you discover that in the early creation of this solar system, there were all kind of rogue planets and rogue suns flowing through here, wreaking havoc and creating disasters and everything else. Guess what the Enuma Elish says? The same exact thing. Again, ancient tablets, thousands of years old, modern science tells you the same exact story. It's the same exact story. So we had a planet named Tiamat back then. Tiamat was this massive planet, 4 to 6 times larger than the Earth, a water-bearing planet with land, and in my opinion, most likely life. One of the biggest theories that I have when you talk about these miners that go into these deep shafts, and depending on how many layers down, you can tell how many millions of years back you're going in time. 3 million years, 4 million years, 500 million years, they found a vase. 200 million years, they found a hammer. They're finding all these tools and vases and all these incredible anomalies at hundreds of millions of years and back in time, depending on the depth of the anomaly, right, in the shaft. How can that be if human beings have only really been Homo sapien and creating tools for maybe 200,000 years? If you want to stretch it to maybe almost a million, okay, you can do that. But where did these anomalies come from? In my opinion, so Tiamat in the ancient texts, it was actually colliding with another moonlet of another planet that was orbiting a brown dwarf star. When it collided with Tiamat, it blew into giant pieces. That is what your asteroid belt comes from. The asteroid belt, you have Mercury, Venus, Earth, and then you have Mars, and then you have another planet, which nobody talks about, called Ceres, C-E-R-E-S. There's another planet. It has more fresh water on it than Earth, by the way. Then after Ceres, you have the asteroid belt, okay? The asteroid belt is an exploded planet. It was Tiamat in ancient times. The ancients said this. Now, this is interesting because the Earth didn't exist yet at the time that Tiamat was here. They said that Tiamat was so beautiful that the glow from the sun reflecting on it rivaled the sun's glory. How could they know that? How could they know that if the Earth wasn't here? What perspective did they see this planet from? What planet did they look at it from? We don't know. But what's interesting is that was a statement that was made in the text. And so Tiamat exploded. A giant chunk of it swung away with all the water. This is where the waters divided from the waters. It recoalesced back into what we now have called Ki, which is the Earth. We are part of another planet. That's why when you dig into this planet, millions of years in the past, layers down, you discover anomalies that shouldn't be there because, in my opinion, this is another Billy Carson hypothesis. Those anomalies were when we were part of another planet. Those are artifacts from Tiamat that we're uncovering. You never heard anybody talk about this before. That's my whole theory. So I'm working on a show about this right now. So you see you have the way that our solar system is set up, and you have the asteroid belt right there between Mars and Jupiter. Right after Mars, there's a little tiny planet called Ceres. Like I said, it's hardly on any star maps or anything. But that right there, that what you're looking at, what they call the hammered bracelet in the Bible and other texts, the ancients have known about it for eons. That is actually remnants of Tiamat, an exploded planet. And this right here is actually a NASA image from nasa.gov. It shows the path of a brown dwarf star. You can kind of see it in the lower corner, passing through our solar system. Okay, now this brown dwarf star, they've now actually found it. They've labeled it a planet to not call it a star. They call it Planet 9. It actually orbits in a very strange elliptical orbit. It orbits our sun now every 4,200 years as the orbit has changed over time. What's interesting, it has a little, 6 little planets orbiting it. 6 little planets orbiting it. It says it's another solar system in our solar system. So we don't live in a solar system with one sun. We live in a binary solar system. And so as scientists at NASA and other space agencies started to research the skies and they launched the WISE telescope, they started to find out and realize, wow, wait a minute. Trinary and binary stars are more common than solar systems with single stars. And where are all these weird anomalies coming from? They noticed that Neptune and Saturn switched places because something came through gravitationally huge and made it switch orbits. We know this because we can actually rewind the orbiting clock with a computer simulation and find out all the original orbits. Something passed by so abrupt, it caused Mercury to slow down its spin on its axis. This is where the astronomer came forward on this actual clip here. This is a screenshot of it. And he said, astronomers discovered dwarf planet 7.5 billion miles from the sun. Now, what they don't say on that little line there in the actual clip, the astronomer says that it's orbiting its own star, a brown dwarf star. And so I said, what if our sun is orbiting something that's creating this? And that's how I dug and found that we actually have a brown dwarf orbiting us, but it's not like it's mainstream news. But if you go into the science books, it's actually there. They hide everything in plain sight, okay? But at some point, there was a catastrophe. And this is where Thoth comes into play. Thoth is an Atlantean priest king. The Egyptians know him as Hermes. Oh, the Greeks know him as Hermes, but the Egyptians know him as Thoth, Jehudi to the Africans, okay? He's basically one of the most, at the time, the most intelligent people on the planet. He taught languages to everybody. And what happened is there was a great flood before he went on this mission. And after this great flood, his father, Enki, who was also known as Thothme, told him, go back to the land of the hairy barbarians and rebuild civilization. In other words, he didn't say that civilization needed to be started there. They had already raised everybody up to a high level. They had already created basically, almost heaven on earth by the labor between the Igigi and the humans. And then they had this big catastrophe. And the mission that Enki sent them on was to bring back civilization to the planet after this global flood. Whatever this catastrophe was, it's not really truly clear exactly what it was, but it did happen. So he gets into his ship. It says he gets into the great ship of the master. It didn't say he sailed out. It said he rose into the sky until the planet disappeared, until he got to the place that he was basically his destination for his mission. And then he said he saw the great temple coming out of the mud beneath him. That means this thing is in the sky. And he descended on the land of Chem. When he descended down to the ground, he opened his doors. All this, what I'm telling you, is in my book, Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. And this exact quote that I'm giving you comes from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, which is an ancient text that dates back over 36,000 years. He drops his door down. Him and his crew come out of the ship. He says the hairy barbarians came to attack him with cudgels and spears. And he said he raised his staff and he sent out a ray of vibration, striking them still as fragments of stone in the mountain. He froze them in place with a beam weapon 36,000 years ago. High-tech weaponry, that didn't injure them, didn't kill them, but stopped them from attacking. We have something similar right now. It's called the active denial system in the military. If you look at military active denial system, we have a device that sends out a beam. And so if somebody's coming to attack an area, rioters or whatever, they can send a beam at you that will make you stop, make you think you're on fire, make you vomit, make you sick, make you scream, make you have voices in your head. It's called the active denial system. We have the same exact technology now. We just rediscovered what he already had. And what's interesting is he said then he built the Great Pyramid. He claimed to have built, now he not with his own hands, okay? But he was the master architect for this structure on planet Earth, and then told once they rebuilt the land of Chem, which is Egypt before it was called Egypt, then he told his crew, he said to them, now go around the planet and duplicate what we did here. This is why when you look at this planet, no matter where you go, you're going to find similar structures, the similar construction techniques, the same type of tool markings. You're going to find the same types of pyramids, all the similarities, because why? You had one master architect. And this was the mission that Thoth was on. He was the master architect post-diluvial. He was the master architect that rebuilt civilizations on this planet. And who was Thoth? He was an Atlantean priest king, okay? What's interesting about him that I love about him is that the fact that he didn't claim to have been an actual god, where some of his relatives, they actually said, you know what? Yeah, I'm God. Yeah, bow to me. Bring me these sacrifices. You know what the sacrifices were for? Because they had to eat, man. They're not going to go kill no animals. Bring me the sacrifices. So people would kill the animals and bring it to them. That's how they ate.
And so what Thoth did when they would drop to his feet, he would say, rise, I'm a son of Atlantis. That's what he would say. He said, I'm a son of Atlantis. Sometimes he would call himself the son of man, just like Yeshua did in the Bible, the son of man. Not the son of God, but the son of man. Interesting.